Colson Montgomery's big league debut was impressive, and so was the young core when it came to proving the White Sox are at least better than one team. Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, lifelong Sox fan, contributor to SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fanside of Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Colson Montgomery's debut was stellar, and some of the other young core players were darn good too, as I want to discuss the White Sox taking 2 of 3 from the Rockies over the weekend. Turns out Shane Smith's stellar April and May was enough to earn an all-star nod. Let's discuss why it was the right choice over Adrian Houser and others, along with the best course of action in handling Smith's workload the rest of the season in the second segment. And finally, going to scrap this week's Minor League Monday report and instead go over the 5 best moments in Bobby Jenks' White Sox career, as the iconic closer sadly passed away over the weekend after a battle with cancer. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, so first, I'm going to admit I was loud wrong, and I can admit when I'm wrong, but I was wrong with suggesting on last Monday's show that Colson Montgomery should have debuted during the Dodgers series because the Rocky series was the perfect spot to bring up the team's first high school drafted position player to make it to the major since catcher Mark Johnson. That's right. It's been 31 years, according to Sam Phelan of SouthsideShowdown.com, since the team drafted a non-pitcher out of high school and got him to the show. And if I remember, Mark Johnson, he wasn't anything special. I think he was just nothing more than a backup catcher. So think about that terrible draft trend that the White Sox, whenever they drafted somebody out of high school, they basically, in terms of position players, they couldn't get into the show. Now, in next week's draft, that doesn't mean if JoJo Parker's there or Steele Hall or some of the other guys, Billy Carlson, some of the other guys that are really talented shortstops. There's 5 high school prep shortstops that are supposed to be very, very good, that have very high ceilings, that the White Sox shouldn't take them. And you should always draft shortstop or center field or catcher. Draft up the middle. That they shouldn't do it. But man, that is, talk about a futile streak. But having him play against the worst team in baseball, and yes, folks, there is a team worse than the White Sox, and it is the Colorado Rockies. That was a great move by the front office. That was a good call by Chris Getz and the gang, because it allowed him to hit in the thin Colorado air. And also think about it, Coors Field's turf also plays like a spring training facility. I believe it was Dan Plesac who made that point during the television broadcast. So if it's like a spring training facility in Arizona, you got that dry air, and then, just add in the thin air too. Colson Montgomery thrives, remember, in Arizona, so he should have thrived in Colorado. So remember, Colson Montgomery's had some great Arizona fall leagues. So that was pure genius. And I'll admit I was wrong on wanting to get him up against the Dodgers because it was worth the wait. It was worth waiting 3 more games. Who knows if he'll be good every series like he was against Colorado, but for 3 games in Denver, the team's 2021 first-round pick proved he was worth the wait. And we waited, folks, and we were nervous, and we wondered, is he ever going to get to the big leagues? Is he going to be a bust? What's it going to be with all this, ups and downs at AAA? But for at least 3 days, he looked like a franchise cornerstone player. He looked like a superstar. He looked like his ceiling. And remember, this is the scouting report, not me saying it. He looked like he could be Corey Seager. And even more impressive, the White Sox won the loser series because of their young core. Now, yes, Mike Tauchman and Adrian Houser do deserve some credit for providing some veteran support. So does Michael A. Taylor. But for the most part, this young core helped win the series. And it might be worth discussing, should Lenyn Sosa be added to the young core too? But outside of a big 4-run 5th inning for the Rockies, the White Sox were the better team. They were just clearly the better club. You saw the Rockies doing some basically 2024 White Sox things. And I'm suspending putting a figurative dollar and mentioning the 2024 season because that is the Colorado Rockies peer right now. I mean, they're not good. And I don't mean to kick them when they're down, but they're just a bad team. But the White Sox did get a huge boost from Colson Montgomery. Went 5 for 10 with 2 walks and 2 RBIs. Also set a little bit of trivia history as he's one of the first players in the expansion area, possibly I think it's the modern era too, if I recall correctly, to reach base in his first at bat on catcher's interference. I remember him he hits a weak rounder and he's just trotting down to first. I'm like, why is he not hustling? And it's like, oh yeah, he knew it. Catcher's interference. Now, his first career game, he impacted the game more with his glove. And remember, the biggest question mark is can he be a big league shortstop? But man, he made an amazing over-the-shoulder catch to rob the Rockies of an early run. Was diving into left field, extended out. And throughout those 3 games, he looked like a solid major league shortstop. I mean, it would be great if he can maintain a 1 defensive run saved, or even better, to prove he is a legit MLB shortstop. Because remember, scouts outside the organization think he is going to be a third baseman. They think he's going to have to move to third or first. But, when you saw him stretch out, for example, on that diving catch on Friday, that extra length that he has does allow him to make plays sometimes smaller shortstops are not going to make. The only reason why I think he might not be a long-term shortstop is that he's already had 2 big back issues, and he's only 23 years old. So will his back allow him to play shortstop? But Saturday and Sunday, he impacted the series with his bat, nearly hit his first career home run in his first at-bat on Saturday. Instead, has to settle for a triple being his first big league career hit. I mean, oh boy, I just got to settle for a 3-bagger. Oh darn. They came close. I mean, that ball was carrying. And if he just hit it a little bit higher, he would have hit his first career home run. But he goes 3 for 5 in Saturday's game. That 10-3 thrashing of the Rockies. I almost said thrashing, but thrashing. And then he goes 2 for 3 with a walk in yesterday's 6-4 defeat. It was nice to see on Friday's 3-2 victory, Edgar Caro hit his first big league career homer that broke a 2-2 tie in the 6th. I mean, finally, this is a guy who did have double-digit home runs. I mean, it's not like he's going to be this major power hitter that's going to hit 30 to 35 bombs a year, but he should be able to be a guy that, maybe hits 10 to 25 home runs. And he's gone about almost 200 at bats. I want to say 175 at bats before he finally hit his first big league home run. And I don't care if it's at Coors Field, it counts. And it was basically a golf swing. I mean, he teed it up, got it over, and he gets his first big league home run. And basically that's a deciding factor, especially when Grant Taylor comes out, gets a 2 strikeout save in a tight game. And now the White Sox have won their 6th single-digit game of the season, single-digit lead. I mean, that, you were seeing basically the young core leading the way with some veteran support. I mean, Brooks Baldwin, he had a great series. Get some regular at-bats. He was hitting the ball hard with a couple of doubles. Even Jordan Leisure somehow escaped a self-induced bases-loaded jam on Saturday. But Lenyn Sosa, he also had a huge Saturday night. 2-run bomb and a 3 for 5 performance. And if he keeps hitting for slug, along with a decent average, if you could just teach him to find the base when he's fielding, because, he had another gaffe on Saturday where, Leisure throws to him to potentially get a runner out on a grounder to the pitcher, and Lenyn's not even close to second base. But if you could teach him to maybe find first base, I think you might have your long-term DH/first baseman. He's barely a second baseman. And again, if Colson can be your shortstop of the future, you want Colson and Chase, being your double play combo. But for Sosa, the only reason why, I'm not ready to put him in core status is he's got a thin line, thin margin for error to be a core value player, because it's going to have to be made up of that old-fashioned decent average and a slug over 400, since he has no plate discipline whatsoever. Terrible walk percentage, but he might be a throwback slug and hit guy. And I think you have to entertain him as a long-term first base option if he can actually find the bag when he's fielding it. Well, speaking of long-term options, Shane Smith has established himself as a core piece, but he's running out of gas. but his April and May that established him as a building block earned him an all-star nod. Let's discuss why he deserved the honors and what the club should do to manage his workload the rest of the year. And that's after the break on Locked On White Sox. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And I'm using Monarch Money to help me save up for retirement, as I would like to avoid working until I'm 75 years old. And it can help saving up by showing just how much extra I've been spending on things like streaming subscriptions and ordering takeout. Those things that drain your bank account little by little, kind of like a death by 1,000 paper cuts. That stuff adds up. And I know my wife, she loves Monarch Money, how it makes budgeting so easy. Her and I can track all our accounts in one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't get your show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, so from a pure rest standpoint, I think it actually would have been better had Adrian Hauser or even another rookie, Mike Vassell, gotten the White Sox all-star representation over Shane Smith. And again, just from a pure rest standpoint, because the eye test and even the advanced data is showing, guy is gassed. I mean, his spin rates against the Rockies yesterday were below average. He's hanging more stuff out over the plate more than he did in April and May. That changeup just isn't dancing like it used to. And, this is a guy, the reason why he's running out of gas, though, is you can tell he's only a few innings away from his career innings mark. But he did deserve to be the team's all-star. That April and May where he allowed just 17 earned runs and struck out 54 in 11 starts, that earned him the right to be an all-star. I mean, his first two starts in June, too, were also dominant. 11 and 1/3 innings combined against the Tigers and the Astros, where he gave up just one run. I mean, think about it. One run against two of the better teams in baseball. I mean, Detroit is the best team in the American League. I mean, they're running away with the division. But the numbers have ballooned over his past four starts. I mean, his ERA went from 2.37 to 4.20. And his FIP, I believe, is only around 4.00. He allowed 5 runs on 5 hits and walked 2 yesterday in 4 1/3 innings. He's had 21 earned runs allowed over his past 4 starts, 10 walks at just 14 strikeouts. Okay, so that's why you kind of, when you looked at that, you're like, well, I mean, Adrian Hauser, he was dominant on Friday. Gave up just 2 runs, but none of them earned. I mean, he was darn good. And his 8-game stretch has been amazing. But it's just been an 8-game stretch. And, Shane Smith, he was really good from the beginning. Just his last 4 starts. And guys have had, they've gone into the All-Star game struggling. I've seen it. Every day you probably heard me. And I know I'm mentioning my Brewers coverage days, but I remember I covered that team. Derek Turnbow, his one All-Star appearance, he was downright filthy. I remember, I think it was 2006 or was it 2005? Maybe in 2004. Either way, he was really good. And then he just couldn't command his secondary pitch. And he blew up in the second half. And he was starting to blow up, blowing saves. But he still made the All-Star team because he had a good April, May, and a little bit of June. He actually, I think his last really good outing that year that he made the All-Star team was in the All-Star game. He did get in there. But otherwise, he was blowing saves left and right. So it's not to say that the whole body of work does not mean 4 games should have excluded Shane Smith from making the All-Star game. And remember, I said, I thought maybe Shane Smith had lost it. I did. And I can again admit I am wrong. I can admit sometimes that I'm wrong. It's possible. But I think the bigger picture is what to do with him through the rest of the season. Because it's great to see him go from a Rule 5 pick to an All-Star. I'm just more concerned about how the White Sox handle him the rest of the year. And to me, I'm giving him the week off. I'm giving him this week off. I'll bullpen game on Friday because he set the schedule. He set to start on Friday against the Guardians. Again, wins and losses don't matter. Getting these guys through the season healthy, these core guys, that matters. And I don't think Shane is going to have an injury, but you never know. But also just giving him a mental break, giving him a physical break. This is the perfect point in the schedule to do it. This way he can basically get 2 weeks of rest. I mean, even if he pitches in the All-Star game, he's probably only going to pitch an inning. I doubt he's going to be the starter. I know you can get some rust concerns, but at this point now, it's just get him through the season so his arm can experience 100 inning plus workload without everything just falling apart on him to where maybe he loses confidence. I don't want to see a John Schneider situation. I believe I got that guy's name right. Because I remember him, I want to say, what was it, 19, the Kids Can Play era? I want to say it was 98 or 99. He got off to I remember when wins and losses matter, he was off to a 6-1 start. He was downright, tough to hit. And I think he just ran out of gas really early, and then you never heard from him again. I don't want to see that happen to Shane Smith because, again, the stuff is very good. He was a pitching ninja regular in April and May. I mean, that changeup was a cheat code. But he is 10 2/3 innings away from going past his career innings of 94 1/3 that he had last year. And folks, we got 12 weeks of the season left to go. So the exercise from here on out should just be what the White Sox did with Garrett Crochet last season. Only the difference is they were preserving Crochet's arm to protect his left elbow that had Tommy John surgery in 2022. And remember, he was having some injury issues even in 2023. For Smith, the reason why we just want to limit his workload is just the stamina. But getting his arm used to working over 100 plus innings. And then make sure his season just doesn't completely spiral out of control where you have confidence issues. Because he's cleared the core status benchmark to me. He may not for you, but to me, he has. He can get that fastball up almost to 99. I think he's very good, though, at keeping it between 97 and 95 to set up his change. And when his change is dancing, and even when he can get his curve and his slider working, go back and again watch some of the pitching ninja stuff from April and May, where he is just, it's almost unfair to the hitters. I mean, he was sorting guys. And getting through the major league workload, though, and the endurance, I'm not slamming him. It's just part of the development process. I think it was Chris Burke or whatever. I'll probably mention his name in the next segment. I just forgot off the top of the head. I know I was listening to Hit and Run with Matt Spiegel, and he had Burke on the show yesterday, the former Houston Astros and now ESPN analyst, talking about one of the things that is part of the development process for a lot of pitchers, young pitchers, is just getting used to taking the ball every fifth day over a 162 game schedule and logging at least 5 or 6 innings. And that's what this season is. That's the next hurdle for him to clear. But man, he looks tired. So I don't think you need to limit him to 4 innings like Crochet, since Garrett, one of the reasons why they limited him also to 4 innings, I think they were just trying to protect his trade value for the next year. But also, he did come into the season having pitched only 73 career innings in his entire professional career. Smith has at least thrown 156 1/3 innings in the minors when he was with the Brewers over 3 seasons. So I might suggest 5 innings. And also, I would spot him an opener too sometimes, kind of like what they do with Sean Burke. Maybe have Brandon Eisert start the game, give him, get an inning or two, so then that way you're not in this situation. Because remember, one of the things that I thought was incompetent of a certain manager last year was just Garrett's got to start the first 4 innings. Why? Garrett should have started, should have came in the second or third inning. And then he can at least get through, the third through the 7th. So then your bullpen only has to cover 2 big innings. Give, if you have an opener, then you can have, Smith maybe get through innings 2 through 7, that type of stuff. At least Will Venable gets that. But I would look at this spot in the schedule and see an opportunity to give him some rest and not even have him start until maybe July 21st, 22nd, or even the 23rd, especially if Davis Martin is back from the IL. I wouldn't rule out doing a 6-man rotation, at least that first week of the All-Star break. Just give Smith a breather. But, hey, April and May, he earned the All-Star nod. I don't care what the last 4 starts when it comes to the bigger picture. He earned the nod, but right now he does look tired. Now, I won't be doing a minor league Monday report this week, as I do also have some draft talk lined up. I've got another guest lined up too to talk about the kind of the state of the farm system too. So I'm pushing this week's minor league Monday report because I do want to honor iconic closer Bobby Jenks, who passed away over the weekend after a battle with cancer, and that is after the break. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Hope that you had a good weekend. My 4th of July, went to a family outing on Friday. Had a little water balloon fight with my daughter. And, they've got now reusable water balloons, which is kind of cool. But also, the water can get dirty because you got to put them in a bucket. And if they roll around in the mud, that type of stuff. Saw some fireworks and otherwise just kind of low key. So hopefully you had a good 4th of July weekend. All right. So Bobby Jenks was more than just a guy on the 2005 World Series roster that ESPN had in their tweet. And that's right. ESPN continues to disrespect the 2005 World Series. And I thought it was disrespectful to Bobby Jenks' memory. So whatever intern or whatever AI they had in charge of basically reducing Jenks to, quote, who was on the roster when the franchise won the 2005 World Series. I'm not going to share the tweet because I don't want to give it too much of light of day, but that's what they said. He was on the roster. That man recorded the biggest save in franchise history when he picked up the save in Game 4 of the 2005 World Series. I mean, ESPN should be ashamed. I mean, at least I'm surprised they mentioned that he was a 2-time All-Star. I was actually shocked. I mean, think about it. The Cubs, the rival crosstown Cubs, put a graphic in memory of Bobby Jenks in a Cardinals-Cubs game because I think they knew just how important he was to the city of Chicago. City. The Colorado Rockies did a class move by putting a tribute and having a moment of silence. And the 4-letter network reduces Bobby Jenks to a man on the roster. That's irresponsible. But, it's sad that Bobby lost his battle with cancer. There was reports that he really, really wanted to make it to this week's festivities. He had that interview with Scott Burkham where he said he didn't want to die in Portugal. He was going to do everything he could to fight. And, he lost his battle. But he is iconic for White Sox fans. I mean, partially because he was more than just some one-hit wonder. I mean, he was actually a very good closer. He wasn't just this flash in the pan, came up for a couple games, in 2005, got some big outs, and then was never heard from again. He recorded 173 saves for the White Sox between 2005 and 2010. Most of them between 2006 and 2010, because remember, he only had 6 saves during the regular season of 2005 when he made his debut. And he was pretty much automatic when it came to protecting a lead. He only blew 26 saves in the 5 years on the South Side. So basically when PODs boom, hit on the loudspeakers, and there was a lead in the 9th, and he was coming out of the bullpen from 2006 to 2010, it was pretty much game over. That's a White Sox winner. And I also love how the White Sox had a tribute video on X, formerly Twitter, and, former GM Rick Hahn, he was correctly pointing out Jenks was actually ahead of his time. He's kind of a trailblazer because think about it. Not many guys were hitting 98 on the gun, let alone 100. Jenks was getting to 100 miles an hour on his fastball routinely, at least at the beginning of his career. I mean, he was a trailblazer for max velocity closers. Because remember, in the early aughts, we're still talking about if guys were hitting 95 and 97 on the gun as having overpowering stuff. Oh man, that guy's a fireballer. Think about it. 95 is now considered an average fastball. When I remember in like 96, 97 was woo. I mean, Kerry Wood, I don't remember him hitting 100. But man, when he would have that 98 slurve, I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. Or Randy Johnson. I mean, Nolan Ryan, those guys were, what made them special was they were very, very rare. Now they would just be, I mean, their stuff obviously would make them still Hall of Famers, but now they would just be run-of-the-mill guys in terms of velocity before you go into, oh, how dare you say it? Just velocity, okay? And Jenks was a guy who could also induce weak contact, a 53.6 ground ball percentage for his career. And he was an icon on the South Side for more than just getting 4 saves in that 2005 World Series run. And I wrote about his 5 biggest moments in his career on SouthsideShowdown.com that I kind of want to go over. So number one for me, and again, this is more my personal, if you got different ones, and I'm sure there was a bunch of regular season saves he had, but for me, the 5 biggest moments was obviously number one, recording the save in World Series Game 1. Okay. I'll get to Game 4 save as actually being number 2 in a second. But the main reason I'll say why it's 1 is that Game 1 save was all Bobby Jenks. I mean, he recorded, first of all, the final 4 outs of the ball game. He comes in the 8th, 2 outs, runners on second and third, and he's got to face Jeff Bagwell, one of the best hitters of his generation, in a huge, tight crunch situation. I believe it was 4-3. And he strikes him out. He strikes out the Astros' most dangerous hitter swinging. And then he adds 2 more strikeouts to preserve a 5-3 Game 1 victory. The White Sox first World Series win since 1959. Then number 2, locking down Game 4 to win the World Series. Because Juan Uribe does deserve a ton of credit for getting those 3 outs in the 9th inning of Game 4 that clinched the 2005 World Series in a 1-0 game. That's why Uribe's heroics knocked this moment down. I mean, Jenks had to throw the pitches to, get Jason Lane. I mean, Brad Ausmus. Chris Burke. That's in the second segment. Chris Burke, he was on hit and run with Matt Spiegel, who talked about, one of the things that pitchers have to develop is just taking the ball every 5 days. But he gets Chris Burke to obviously foul off the pitch that Uribe snatched out of the stands. But you got to remember, and this is where I got my notes kind of screwed up. Sorry. Jenks did give up a leadoff single to Jason Lane, and Brad Ausmus bunts him over to second. So there was a potential chance that Jenks could have blown his second save that series. Remember, he blew the Game 2 save. Scott Pasetnik had to bail him out. But he gets Burke to foul that pitch off where Uribe goes into the stands and snatches the ball out. And that is a bigger catch than Derek Jeter's overrated highlight grab going into the stands in the postseason. I mean, Uribe, I think, went into like 4 rows. I mean, it was a go-go gadget arm catch. And then Orlando Palmeiro hits a chopper over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges, throws, out, and the White Sox win the World Series. 88 years of misery is over, and Jenks and A.J. Pierzynski are celebrating on the mound in Houston. Number 3, the blackout game save in 2008. Jenks just had a knack for nailing down 1-0 wins in some of the biggest games, and he did it in Game 163 where the White Sox finally beat the Twins to take the division. Number 4, the 41 consecutive batters retired in 2007. That was he tied a then MLB record. And then I would say the first 2 career postseason saves that he had in the 2005 ALDS against Boston. The first one, he obviously proves that, hey, maybe they didn't need to trade for a closer. And the second one is the White Sox finally win their first postseason series since 1917. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss should the White Sox bail out the Padres with their catching problem and taking a stab at some of the draft prospects. Scouting director Mike Shirley told MLB.com Scott Merkin the team is thinking of going with at the number 10 pick. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding Colson Montgomery's impressive debut and the White Sox winning a series on the backs of their young core. Shane Smith being named to the All-Star team, but also needing some rest this month, and honoring iconic closer Bobby Jenks, who sadly passed away over the weekend. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.